So remember when he said a minute ago, we'll get to this because we tried to investigate the utilities, but we had a little trouble with this. Here's why.
As it turns out, the utility employees are all employees of Disney. They are not district employees. And I discovered that actually there's not an easy way for Mr. Gilzine or other employees of the district to interact with the employees of the utilities. And we, in fact, were not permitted to speak to any of them, nor were we permitted to enter any of the physical manifestations of the utilities. One of the things I wanted to look at was the electric generation plant. The thing that I did discover indirectly was that actually the district generates no electricity from that.
They have a power plant, they have a generator that the district owns, staffed by Disney employees who are instructed to keep the auditors out of property that they don't actually own, that Disney doesn't actually own, because they don't actually generate any electricity at their own electrical power plants. Proceed, sir.
And, hold on a second, though.
Yeah.
I've got a bit of information I'd like to share on that.
Go for it.
What I have learned in the time since this first came out is that I believe, based on what I've been told from someone who has been inside that power plant, although I cannot corroborate this because I have not been in said power plant and I don't have the photographic evidence thereof, but I believe one of the power plants has been transformed into a giant air conditioning unit that supplies air-conditioned, beautiful cold air-conditioned air for one of the theme parks, and may also be a location where power from outside is purchased for the district.
He brings up the purchasing thing, but the air conditioning, that would be even worse.
I think it all happens in one location.
If they converted one of the power plants into an air conditioner for the exclusive benefit of a Walt Disney theme park, we could just keep adding. We can just keep adding charges.
That's my understanding. That's my understanding, and I believe it goes to Epcot.
Oh, I mean, I would love to see the tax return of this entity because how did it handle the asset that was never placed in service? Because if the asset, if it's just built and doesn't work, then it's not placed in the service.
Right. But
I've also got more information on the solar panels when we get to there too.
Yeah, but the problem with Mike is it doesn't matter because nobody's got to look at the books except Disney for the last 55 years.
Oh, that's right. I forgot.
That might be.
Would I be. Sorry, I was thinking like independent auditor hat. Here, let me.
And notice Jennings again said he alluded to the fact that there's probably more stuff here, but pretty much most of all the records that we got were from 2021 to now. They didn't get very much before 2021. I'm sure it's out there somewhere, probably lifted from the records room in the RCID building and is now sitting in a Walt Disney World office or under the park somewhere in the tunnel system underneath the Magic Kingdom.
Generation plant. The district.
What'd you say?
Well, I was just going to say that if indeed that's true, that a power plant was transitioned into being the world's largest AC unit, and if utility taxes were going towards said air conditioning unit that you just said, I think perfectly, would be only benefiting the Walt Disney Company and specifically everyone attending Epcot that day. If all of that is true, and folks out there, I'm not suggesting it is, I'm just suggesting that I think it's likely enough to bring it up. But if all that's true, you can imagine why they would not want people to be coming in to inspect a power plant which does not exist any longer.
Yeah.
It generates no electricity from it. All the electricity in the district.
Let me back it up just a smidge here. And to that end, if any of these utilities were built or maintained with funding from municipal bonds that were issued by Reedy Creek that are obviously, they're not going to put in the bond prospectus, we're building an air conditioner to chill Epcot during the summer, because they'd never be able to issue such a bond on a municipal level. Corporate level is yes. Municipal, no. So again, if any of that's true, then we can add more counts that the MSRB has to investigate for securities fraud.
Electric generation plant. The thing that I did discover indirectly was that actually the district generates no electricity from that plant. It's a cogeneration plant. The district generates no electricity from it. All the electricity in the district is purchased from third parties and delivered through the grid. And I was asking, well, why
let
are
me
they
add something there.
maintaining
Valiant.
the
Pause for just a moment, because since we did the video on the solar panels, I think that I know now how that worked as well. And folks, remember, I can't corroborate this because I don't want to touch or see the actual documents. This is so spicy. I don't want to have any part of that. All I can tell you is what people tell me. So rumor and speculation again. What I believe has happened here, we brought up the fact that why were these solar panels not placed over the parking lots? That would have provided nice shade for all the cars. It would not have destroyed thousands of acres of forest and wildlife habitat and all of that. And what I've come to believe is that probably the reason they did not do that is because they worked out a sweetheart deal with a utilities company where they leased the solar farm land for 15 years to said utilities company. The solar panels then generate electricity for that utilities company, and then Disney buys back an equivalent amount off the solar panels to claim that they're reducing their overall emissions. The real problem here, and I've actually got the notes in front of me still from doing that. Let me just pull this up. Probably about 90% of Disney's overall electrical generation needs are handled through combined cycle natural gas turbines purchased from a third party. Mm-hmm. The solar panels, which are suggested, and this was carried by Good Morning America, ABC News, etc., talking about how Disney was now able to generate 40% of their overall Walt Disney World electrical needs out for these solar panels, which clearly now we know that's dubious at best.
No,
but
no way.
Having talked to a nuclear engineer who is a utilities expert, kind of funny to talk to a nuclear engineer about solar panels, but here it is.
Who
Apparently
don't you
that
know,
40
man?
That's right.
You've got every kind of expert in the world in your Rolodex.
Well, the 40% capacity that these solar panels have, in reality, you only get about 25% off of solar panels off their capacity. That's called the electrical availability, and that's the real problem with solar panels. Since Disney, and you'll find out this from Bill Jennings, I think, in this speech he gives, when he talks about Disney having generators for backup electricity, that probably means that Disney doesn't have huge battery packs. And because they don't have huge battery packs, that probably means that they're not running any of that electric generation off solar panels in the evening. So essentially, all you get off those solar panels is the 40% capacity on the brightest, sunniest day with no clouds in the sky and only during daylight hours. And so that's how you get down to the fact that you realize the reality. And this is really important, too, because Disney said by the 2030s that they would be running Walt Disney World with net zero emissions. Sure. The problem here is that those solar panels, when you actually talk to experts who know what's going on, they say that probably they're only generating 10% of the entire resort's needs off of solar electricity.
I was going to say 10 probably on a very good day, maybe 10%, because generally it's they're not that efficient. But he does talk a little bit about that issue. But the other thing, Pro, is how were the solar panels paid for? Were they exclusively paid for by Disney, or once again, were there public taxpayer funds or municipal bonds issued to support through the utilities the construction in any way of this solar panel farm that Disney put inside the former RCID?
I asked that to Andrew to see if he could start getting some answers on that, because I don't have anybody who knows the answer to that. The other significant thing to know about it would be as well, and this I told Andrew also, and I don't think he minds me saying that I've said that to him, but there's also a very good question that should be answered about when it came to tax write-downs and all sorts of benefits that are received by having solar panels. Who was the beneficiary there? Was it the RCID or was it Disney Company? Because the Walt Disney Company, in their official press releases, they have claimed that these solar panels have made them, have put them towards a goal of a emissions net zero goal. They're not the RCID. And if the solar panels,
they think they are.
Well, the problem here is that the RCID seems to have been the one who leased out the land, and that I do believe is true. And so then that really, you've got the Disney Company operating the RCID. The RCID is leasing out the land, and then the Walt Disney Company is taking credit for those for what's happening, using their own official news network, ABC News and Good Morning America, to put that out there and have everybody, promulgate it. And at the same time, it seems like the whole, every bit of it is a bunch of shenanigans when you start drilling down and going, oh, wait a minute. You guys are nowhere close to zero emissions. You're nowhere close. Even if all of these hoops, if we jump with you through them, it still doesn't add up to anywhere close to approximating what you've said.
Well, Pro, you answered your question earlier. It's not zero emissions. It's net zero emissions. And what's the difference?
They're nowhere even close, though.
Yeah, but here's the thing, is that when you say net zero emissions, anybody can say we want to be at net zero emissions. What do? They go out. They're still carbon tax credits brokered out there.
Yes.
Disney can just go
I'll
buy.
agree with you on that.
And what if Disney doesn't do it? What if Reedy Creek does it for them? Or they would have if they were still in charge.
Right. But the bottom line is, for all of those pie in the sky, rainbows and sunshine and pixie dust in your eyes, for all of those press releases that Disney made, based on who I've talked with, about 90% of all of Disney World's electrical needs are still driven by combined cycle natural gas turbines.
Traditional
They would call
electrical delivery.
They would call it dirty energy.
Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.